Good morning, friends. It's a beautiful morning, and let's talk. I have a question. Why do many Christians support racial injustice? Why do many Christians support racial injustice? And I'm going to offer at this moment the simple answer. The simple answer is this. The Bible is respected and revered by billions. The Bible is respected and revered by billions. And because that is so, there's no problem, no evil in society that can be totally eradicated if it's the same evil that the Bible condones or supports in one form or the other. So why do many Christians support racial injustice? We have to go back somewhere in history to look at beginnings, I'm going to summarize the answer in about 3 points. And the first point I'd like to bring out is to say the power of the Bible is with the writings of men. The power of the Bible is with the writings of men. And what we find here is that we have certain writings, not just in the Old Testament, but in the New Testament. There is slavery in the Old Testament. And we find that even in the book of Leviticus and Deuteronomy, we see certain writings with regards to how slaves should be treated. And we find that in the book, there are 2 types of slaves that are mentioned. There is one kind of slavery that is like indentured service, where the people, the Hebrew people, as the writings would say, are God's people, the Hebrew people. And they were permitted in the Old Testament to have slaves that they could keep them for about 6 years, not about, but 6 years. And on the 7th year, they would have to be set free. That is one type of slavery, and there are certain rules and laws that govern how you treat this kind of indentured slave. But there's also another type of slavery, and this is what is considered chattel slavery. Chattel slavery, which is like the slaves of the Atlantic trade of slaves that came to America and eventually ended up being on the plantation for years, many, many years, before changes were made. And they were predominantly considered in the Bible foreigners. It was permitted in the Bible that you could enslave foreigners, not the Hebrew people, but foreigners, for life. And when the owners of these slaves die, they could pass on their slaves as property, as an inheritance. We find that to be the case back in the Old Testament. We find it in Leviticus 25, and I'm not going to reel out a lot of scriptures because I'm not giving a sermon. I'm just making a point that the reason, there's a definite reason why many evils in the world continue because it is supported or condoned by the Bible in different ways. We would say, for example, that that was in the Old Testament. Yeah, you would say that was in the Old Testament. But it's also in the New Testament. And we cannot never hide from that. Because in Ephesians 6 and verse 5, we find in this book, it says, slaves, obey your earthly masters with deep respect and fear. Serve them sincerely as you would Christ. Serve them sincerely as you would Christ. Serve your slave masters as you would serve Christ. No, that's the writings in the book that we take as authentic, and because of that, it remains in the book for posterity. We also find another text. I think this one is in Colossians 4 verse 1. And this one said, masters, be just and fear to your slaves. Remember that you also have a master in heaven. Do we really have a master in heaven? That is a question to ponder. Does heaven want to master earth? That's a question to ponder. So we see that the power of the Bible comes from the writers of the Bible. And the Bible is profound in both the Old and New Testament as to how the God of the Old Testament, quote unquote, treats slavery among human beings. And what we find is that slavery spread during the first few hundred years of apostolic religion, in the same way it spread during the transatlantic slave trade. Why? We find that in many cases during slavery time in America, where arguments were made to abolish slavery, the protesters would use the Bible to argue against freeing the slaves. And the Bible speaks profoundly, as mentioned before, that it supports slavery and it condones it in at least two ways. At least two ways the Bible condones slavery. It condones servitude, just like the indentured servants that we are familiar with during the 16th century, 1492, yes, around the 16th century, 16th to 18th century, right around those times. Indentured servitude, as well as satchel slavery. Satchel is a term meaning that it is permitted to keep a slave, buy and trade slave in slavery, and keep them for a lifetime, and bequeath them to your heritage. Well, bequeath them to your family, your next generation who would follow. Just like you would bequeath your house to your children, you could bequeath your slaves to your children because you had them for a lifetime. You had them for a lifetime. And now the point to make here is two, and it is that the authority of men is the God of the pen. The authority of men is the God of the pen. Men write the words that they put in the gods of men in their mouth to speak to how they would authenticate that evil of slavery. So the authority of men is the God of the pen, which themselves created to support an evil and express it in these ways, as we read in both the writings of Old Testament and New Testament, because they consider in the Old Testament what they're doing to be God's will. And I'm about to show you the distinction of whether or not this practice and this system that has pervaded for thousands of years, was it really from the Creator? That is the big question to ponder. But it is supported based on the writings in a book that is stamped, the Holy Bible, the Word of God. It is in a book that is stamped with this distinction of holy. The word holy simply means set apart for noble use. And once you stamp that on any book, and people are taught to read it and to believe it and to promote it worldwide for centuries, then it comes to be set in one's mind indelibly, indelibly. And it's a die-hard thing to question it and know how to go about it. So the authority of men is the God of the pen. And the pen decides who the God is and what that God says. Number 3, people fear both the gods of the Bible and the men who write it. They revere both the gods of the Bible as well as equally as they revere the men who write it. Because the Bible has many truths. The Bible has many truths. And it can't be a book that just have falsehood. If there's deception in it, it's not just deception. I've read the Bible myself pretty much all my life. And I've benefited from the Bible. But I've always been one who had a critical mind to discern what is right in it from what is not correct, and see it as a true ontology of different writers with different opinions. So we have this inheritance in a book that has slavery as authentically coming from God. Authentically coming from God. And we must ask the question, how can that be? That there are people that are considered God's people and others who are not. Are we talking about the Creator? The Creator creates everyone. His people are everyone. The Creator's people are everyone. That self, that great and mighty entity, is the Creator of everyone. When we talk about the Old Testament gods, We are talking about a God who claimed a people, a marginal group of people as is, and the rest that are not. That is the God of the pen. And as I go along, I will show you further the distinction between the creator and the God of the pen. So the third point I wanted to make is that the people fear both the gods of the Bible and the men who write it, the men who wrote it. Well, the men who are still writing it. Because while the first Bible may have been written in the 16th century through the King James back then, the Bible is updated. And since then, there have been so many translations. And every time it is translated, it is translated to update what it's talking about within those pages to make it more understandable and compliable with new thoughts and new emphasis. But never has there been any change or changes to the whole idea of the injustice of slavery written in those pages. So, what I want to do here is say that what is found here is that laws are made and promoted in the name of the Lord your God. Laws are made and promoted in the name of the Lord your God in the Old Testament. And in the New Testament, the Christ of God. But all these are based on a belief. While some believers think that the Christ is the creator, I beg to differ. The Christ, as known as Jesus, was another man. Even the very book tells us that it behooved them to that he's made just like his brother, just like his brothers, and Yeshua ben Yosef, commonly known as Jesus, had brothers, and he came into life just like his brothers. In time, they have made him a God, and we get right back to the God of the pen. You can write it in. You can write him in as God at your leisure. But the truth will speak for itself. So the question is, how do we process all that? How do we process all that? We find that every place that you see the word God, it is based upon a belief. It is based on a belief coming from those who use their intelligence to figure certain things out and come to conclusions. And everything that comes from a belief is waiting in lieu of proof. And I always have to return to the simple concept that what you can prove requires no belief. Belief is only necessary in lieu of proof. On the other hand, the Creator is based on evidence that we can see. That I'm speaking, that I draw a breath, that I can eat, drink, enjoy life, and live from day to day proves there is a creator. No belief necessary there. All one has to do is to embrace the facts of life. And it is the distinction that I'd like to bring to everyone's attention, to say that it's so different from belief systems. We have had about 6,000 years with the beliefs that we get from Old and New Testament. But earth has existed for thousands upon thousands more years, and we are surviving terribly on those belief systems that we have gotten within that period, because the world remains in conflict. The conflict in the eastern part of the world are based upon religious conflicts, based upon many of those teachings. And there's little or no hope in sight on that basis. We must understand that what we have to work with doesn't have to do with beliefs. It's based on practical things, the natural laws and spiritual laws that we attribute gods to, when it's simply the natural laws and spiritual laws at work. And we only have to remember there's a creator, and the creator creates everything with the sufficiency to take care of itself. The creator is not the God of the Old Testament. The creator is far different, far more intelligent, far more capable from being the supporter of slavery amongst people. The creator does not enslave the creation. People use what is inert in them as sufficiency to do whatever they want, because sufficiency comes with all living things, with the free dominion to exercise it. And you have the free dominion to choose either good or bad. The choice of slavery is a bad choice, whether it's in the Old Testament, whether it was during the apostolic age of about 300 years after Yeshua ben Yosef lived on earth, or whether it was during the transatlantic slavery. All those occasions were bad choices that are not supported by the Creator. None of these is supported by the Creator. And when we use the belief systems of calling out there's a God who does this, and our God says, based upon our own opinions and our own failure to suppress the ego and use noble judgment, and we have lived under that system for so long. It's about time we understand what the truth is. The truth can only be based on what is provable. By setting the distinction between gods and belief and the Creator that requires no belief, just evidence. Just evidence. What does the Creator then have to do with the enslavement of peoples? Again, I said nothing. The Creator has nothing to do with that. These atrocities come from the lower elements of the human mind. and it is what pervades society throughout our lifetimes and the lifetimes of many, many who have gone before. So we need to make that distinction. We need to make that distinction. And I'm always thankful that I can align myself with the awareness of the difference between God and the Creator. It is the greatest thing I can speak of to be part of in my lifetime. And it does not require anything more than a little bit of critical thinking that brings awareness. You are not normally aware of the sufficiency in you simply because you have been fed so much deception, so much contrary thoughts when you are looking for answers, and many of those have stuck. You cannot fathom the vastness of the truth of the Creator until you have rejected, or you may suspend judgment, if you like, for a time, as you seek out an open-minded way of trying to understand what is true. And when you have done that in full and maintain a standard or status of awareness in your life, then all that you need to know will arrive. I've said this before. This is coming from some very wise person, I forgot who said it first. When you're ready, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And it's so profound that the teacher is not only outside of you, but also in you. It begins in you when you become aware that you have been given a false message, mingling with many truths, and you have not learned how to decipher it. You have not had on your filters for most of your life. And because of that, you are in a holding place of marginal light when the true light is waiting to arrive. And you will get there as soon as you apply a little bit of critical thinking and become aware that you have been deceived. And only when you can fathom that you have been deceived can the true light appear. So, why do Christians support racial injustice? Because they don't know any better, and they don't know where to go. I do hope that from this point on, you will open your minds and let the true light shine through. That you don't have to worry about what God is going to do to you if you don't follow the falsehood. Just know that the Creator is in you, and He has the sufficiency to move on a straighter path lies within you and outside of you. Is the teacher in you and the teacher outside of you. Let me explain the teacher a little bit more. The teacher in you is that which is inert in you. And when you open your mind and you free your mind and you're curious, it begins to teach you little by little. And you will not know a lot to begin with, but you have entered the door. And once you enter the door of understanding and continue to keep it open, more and more will come in your times of meditation. There are certain things you may not understand immediately, but like I said, when the student, which is you, is ready, the teacher will appear. Someone will pop up here and there and will begin to enlighten you and bolster what you've garnered in so far. So this is the answer to the question, and I hope you find it profitable. And I know you're looking for a new week, and I hope it becomes a grand one with great expectations and with great results. Have a great night and a great week. Bye for now.